Sometimes in life we discover things accidentally. We stumble upon things or we discover things. Maybe you discover your real self. I think that's what happened with me because my life, well, let's just say I sabotaged most of my life myself. I didn't need any help with that. I just did this. I made decisions that always crippled everything I did. I struggled. When rent time came, I usually came up short because, well, I was spending my rent money on beer. Beer was everything. I was spending my rent money on partying. I was spending my rent money on things that I shouldn't have spent it on. And that was a habit I got into that, man, it took years before I realized, if you actually start paying your bills on time, life might be a little easier to deal with. Now, I came here 13 years ago, kind of by accident. I've told this story before, but I was in Florida, staying at a friend's house, and I was looking for a job, and I found one in Ketchikan, Alaska. And I really, I wanted to check it out. They were going to fly me up there, and, I would have had to land in, I think, Seattle or somewhere, and then take a ferry. I mean, it was an ordeal to get there, the way that I had to go. And I didn't really mind that part of it. And then I got to, researching online. It's a tourist trap city. It's very, very expensive. And, I was apprehensive about it. Then I was also offered a job in Little Rock, Arkansas. Glad I didn't take that. Little Rock's a high crime city, but it was a good paying job. And here I am trying to make a decision. Do I want this job or this job? And I'd pretty much told the company in Alaska that, yes, I'm going to accept you. They actually bought the plane ticket, actually. And this was the second time that they had offered me a job. They had done it a few years previously, and I chickened out, or something else came up. But I turned it down, and Here, the opportunity, I actually contacted them the second time and said, hey, do you think you still might have an opening? They really didn't, but they were going to create one for me because I guess, I had the experience they needed. And a place like that needs a guy that's single. Okay, they're more apt to hire a single guy because he ain't got any baggage. You can adapt to a place like that. My plan was to work there and maybe work my way up somewhere else in Alaska. But anyway, at that same time, I'm trying to decide, do I want to go there or do I want to do the Little Rock? And I was planning to fly into Ketchikan and check it out. If anything, I would have got a week's vacation out of it, a couple days, which I wouldn't have felt good about doing if I wasn't serious about taking the job. But I think I would have probably did it anyway. But then a friend of mine who I went to school with, whom I've known since the third grade, we were talking on Facebook, and she said, hey, my husband, I guess one of her relatives, his relatives had died, and he had inherited a couple of farms. And she says, what about coming here in Arkansas and helping him get the farm ready, and maybe you could fix up the other farm. There was a house on this other farm, and you could live there and fix that up. Like, man, that sounds like something that's right up my alley. And so I thought about it for a couple of days. I said, you know what? I'm going to do that. I packed up my one box of belongings that I had with me. I'd just gotten divorced, we just split up. I hadn't been divorced yet. In my bag and my couple of suitcases worth of clothes, and I threw it into my car, which was 5 months behind. They actually tried to repossess it when I was in Florida, and I think it had a GPS tracker in it, but they couldn't get it because it was in a gated community. and the guards would not let the company in to get it. And so I knew this. They had a scam that they pulled on me. They called me on my phone and told me they were the phone company and they were working on the towers in the area. And they needed me to give them the exact location of where I was so that they could reroute my phone to another tower. And I fell for that. I didn't fall for that at all. Then he got mad because I discovered it was, you know, and he called me a redneck hillbilly and all these other names with a New York accent. And I knew it was somebody there in Florida because they have New York accents in South Florida. So anyway, I packed my stuff up and I head to Arkansas, and I stay here at the farm. I've never met her husband before. I grew up around where he's from. He was a retired highway patrol from Tulsa, and so I ended up living there for, I think, about a year. I bought a fifth wheel, parked it on his property, and right off the bat after getting here, I got a job at the ranch, got hurt, but things always seem to fall in place for me here. I don't know why. They just did. It's like I was meant to be here. I can't explain it, but everything, even though I got hurt, soon after I got hurt, I got a job at a pawn shop because I couldn't do the ranch work anymore. I would later go back to work at the ranch, but I got a job at a pawn shop, and for the next 6 years I worked there and was able to get this house. He loaned me the money to get this house, and I got this house, and let me tell you, out of the 13 years I've been here, the first 10 were a major struggle. Okay, there were weeks I didn't have any money for food, hardly. I would buy spaghetti and have spaghetti and butter. I would just melt butter and put it over spaghetti noodles, and I'd eat that for 3 days because it was cheap. There was a lot of struggle here. There were times I would come into a little extra money because he let me sell the cars at the pawn shop. Apparently, I'm a very good salesman. I sold 4 cars in one day once. I made a hell of a lot of commission. And when I would get times like that, I would pay into the house. I would pay all the extra that I didn't need into this house. And I only borrowed $9,500 for this house, and I put in the extra $1,000. I paid $10,500 and borrowed $9,500. Well, I've had a falling out with the pawn shop owner, and I still had a balance of like $4,600 on this house. And he knew my situation, but it was kind of an ugly departure, and he was getting ready to take this house away from me. And fortunately, when I went back, when we had this falling out, I had called the ranch, said, "Hey man, I need a job," and he said, "I got a little bit of carpentry you can do." And it just so happened, and now this is how it worked. He only had a few weeks of carpentry work for me to do, and I took it because I had no other work. And in that 2 weeks, his his ranch hand, quit. Just up and came in one day and said, his health was bad. He said, "I got to quit." There it was, a full-time job again, working at the ranch. And for the next couple of years, I would work for him. And then me and him would have a falling out. And then I find myself with no job, nothing in the bank. But at least, and he had loaned me the money to pay off this other guy, okay? So here I am, no job, but I had paid off everything I owed him, so the house was mine, free and clear. But I didn't have a job now. I didn't have disability. I hadn't got that. That was a 6-year battle. I had not won that yet. In fact, I had just lost the first case over. All right, the battery died on the camera. I hope I don't know where I was, where I was last, but at least I had my property paid off. And so immediately, you know, at this point, I'm not in that good a shape. I haven't gotten my disability yet, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just got online looking for maybe work at home jobs, things like that. I decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel, which I did. Here we are, almost 5 years later. But it wasn't paying anything, maybe 500 a month if I was lucky, but it helped. And I went an entire year with no job. I had sold a car. I had a fairly new car, and I sold it for cash. And I was living off the money that I sold the car for, and very sparingly. Then I started my YouTube channel, and you know, I think the next March. This was in May when I lost my job, and then the next March I did get approved for disability. And that made it a lot easier. Plus, making $400 or $500 a month on YouTube, I was able to make it and just scrape, for the next couple of years. And to make the long story short, the channel blew up like 6 months ago, and now this channel has blown. This channel only has 27,000 subscribers, but makes more money than my main channel that has almost 80,000 subscribers. How that works, I don't know. The videos I put on each channel are exactly the same. It's just the luck of the draw. Sometimes one will do better on one channel, one will do better on the other. So now I'm doing pretty good, and I don't know why things just keep falling in place for me, but I have a few theories. I just changed the way that I thought. I did quit drinking. I did start eating better. I think when you start improving yourself, when you work on yourself, you show up for work every day, you quit the partying, you quit going to the bars. I think that's when life decides it's going to let you have more pleasures. It's going to let you prosper a little more. There are people that have terrible lives, that are drug addicts, that are millionaires, but they're not happy. I am truly happy in my life, and I have been ever since I've been here. That's one thing. Even though I struggled for many, many years, I knew something felt right about living here. Until you find that in your life, you just know when something feels right, and this place has. And I'll probably never leave this house, but we never know when the next door is going to open. We never know that, and you have to recognize that there's opportunities that present themselves to you, and you may not realize that's life. Or you may say that's God showing you this door, and if you pass that door up, you're missing out, because it doesn't constantly happen. You have to pick the right choice at the right time. And I guess that's the door that was opened for me, was her telling me, giving me this opportunity to basically come here and help him rent free, which I think I paid him. Yeah, I paid him for the power. I did pay him something, but basically, to get my life started again. And this time it worked out. And getting older has a lot to do with that. You get a certain level of maturity. And I think really getting away from the cities, getting away from, the nightclubs. And I had quit doing nightclubs before I even came here, long before that. But getting away from that lifestyle. Florida was not going to be a good lifestyle for me. There was too much of a party atmosphere. And getting out here isolated, I mean, it's not that isolated, but you get away from all that. You come back to the real world, the grassroots of America, and it worked out. And my story is going to be different from everybody else's story, but the main thing to remember is if a different opportunity comes your way, and you should feel it in your gut. This sounds right, but nah, I can't do it. Maybe rethink it. Maybe it is the opportunity that will change your life entirely. You're just passing it up. And so you really have to give thought to any new opportunities that come your way. Even if they sound off the wall and something you would never really do, sometimes that's exactly what you should do. It's life, and it's God telling you your direction of your life needs to change. And here's the path. And if you walk by the path, that's free will. We do have free will. And if you willingly walk right by, and do not take the opportunity. That's on you, and it may never come back again. I think that's why a lot of people struggle through life. It's not that they don't have the opportunities to have a good life, it's they passed them over. They passed them over, they didn't recognize it, which a lot of times you're not going to recognize these. But just keep an open mind. Hey, when things come up that are different, they're being offered to me, give them a lot of thought. Thanks for watching. Happy trails.